When men suddenly disappear in their village, the women are compelled to become independent and discover their potential. In a Colombian jungle, Gordon, an overworked journalist, complains to his boss about her desire to find a different angle in his scoop. He reminds her that he's already covering a war, meaning there's nothing different about it. Still, his boss refuses to accept such a generic scoop, so she threatens to fire him. After their call, a child named John overhears their conversation, so he offers a diary he bought as a way for Gordon to have a better story to cover. However, John informs him that he's illiterate, and because of that, he pleads with Gordon to read the story for him. At first, Gordon rejects his request because he thinks that John will only get in his way. To convince him, John shares that the diary might help him gain more money. Gordon proceeds to scan the diary, and he learns that it belongs to a priest named Raphael. Earlier that year, in a small village called Mariquita, a group of revolutionaries arrived, and their leader, Camacho, announced that they'd conscript all of the male villagers. Upon hearing this, the residents proceed to scramble and hide inside the residence out of fear. Similarly, the mayor, Elias, alongside his wife, Rosalba, frantically searches for a spot to hide, but because of their small space, they have nowhere to conceal themselves. Thankfully, the pair realizes that the pantry is a good hiding spot, so they immediately remove its contents. As Rosalba's about to get inside, Elias shoves her aside, for he thinks his life is more important than hers. Since he believes that Rosalba might perish when she encounters the revolutionaries, Elias confesses that he had an affair with Ubaldina, leaving Rosalba in disbelief. Suddenly, Camacho, alongside his associates, barges inside the couple's residence, and he demands Elias's location. He threatens that he'll kill either one of them if she refuses to cooperate with him, for she abhors hatred toward her husband. Rosalba signals that Elias is hiding inside the pantry. Immediately, Camacho opens the storage, and after discovering Elias, he orders his accomplice to shoot him. After dealing with the mayor, Camacho continuously announces their desire to conscript every male resident in the village, which alarms Magnolia and her brother Julio. Because she doesn't want them to take him away from her, Magnolia helps him to disguise himself as a woman. When Camacho asks her if there are men in her house, Magnolia denies it, but he's unsatisfied. He encourages Julio to reveal his name to him, but he remains silent. Magnolia informs them that her sibling is named Julia, and that she's nonverbal. During the man's absence, Rosalba assumes the mayoral position, and she discovers that all of the female villagers struggle with manual labor, such as fixing the vehicles, gathering the garbage, and fixing the power sockets, as they depend on such tasks among men. Moreover, priest Raphael, who's spared from the conscription, reveals that the church is almost deserted because women aren't sinning. One day, Cleotilde, a wanderer, arrives at Mariquita, wherein she seeks Cecilia and Virgelina's assistance regarding her desire to stay in their village. Cecilia warns her that they're private people and have unique customs. Regardless, Cleotilde is still interested in staying, so to convince her, she shares that she can make delicious tortillas and even teach people how to gain confidence. Because Cecilia wants to attend such a class, she offers to let Cleotilde stay in her son's room. Once Cleotilde is settled in her new room, she shares her love of reading, but Cecilia can't relate because she's illiterate. She informs her that the women in their village don't need an education, which upsets Cleotilde. Later that day, La Gringa, a well-known escort in the village, complains to Lucrecia, the madam of the brothel, about their lack of clients. Instead of moping around, Lucrecia voices that they'll just train so that they'll be prepared when the men return. The madam encourages them to explore themselves, and the bystanders outside take an interest in their methods. Just then, Rosalba appears and orders the bystanders to leave, for they're crowding the establishment. Magnolia, who's oblivious to her surroundings, remains outside and continues to learn from the training. Rosalba taps her shoulder, and upon facing their mayor, Magnolia feels embarrassed, so she leaves. Back in the present, Gordon calls his boss to inform her of his desire to pursue Mariquita's story. The woman finds it bizarre yet fascinating, so she demands that he publish his work by Sunday, much to his dismay. Again, in the past, priest Raphael discusses their need for procreation with Rosalba, but the woman refuses to entertain it because she believes it's their least priority. However, the priest insists they must do it as it's their obligation to God to ensure their survivability. When the pair starts to pray, the priest pretends that he's talking to God, exclaiming that he's urging him to father the village's offspring. Priest Raphael declares that he'll do it, but Rosalba reminds him that he's the embodiment of morality in their community. In his defense, the priest insists that it's God's idea, so Rosalba eventually accepts it. Following this, Rosalba announces to the villagers that Priest Raphael will impregnate the residents to maintain their survivability. Cleotilde finds it absurd, but La Gringa and her colleagues are excited about it because it's been ages since they've been with a man. On the night of the priest's visitation, the first woman he decides to bed with is Virgilina, who's also inexperienced. As a result, their lovemaking is filled with awkwardness. After her, Priest Raphael beds Cecilia, who assumes this responsibility because she's Rosalba's assistant. Like his experience with Virgilina, there's a faint awkwardness in his intimacy with Cecilia, given that it's been a while since she's done the deed. Surprisingly, the women begin to line up in front of the church to have the priest all to themselves. However, Priest Raphael isn't interested anymore, for his seed can't produce offspring. That's why when Rosalba wants to try her luck, the priest declines her and reasons that he doesn't have the drive anymore. Soon enough, the women banish the priest from the village, for they feel that he just used them for his own desires. In the present, Gordon becomes frantic after discovering that the diary's incomplete. He tries to confront John about the missing pages, but the child proceeds to leave when he sees a group of rebels approaching, making Gordon feel like he's tricked. Coincidentally, Priest Raphael's in the area, and he alerts Gordon that he's holding his diary. Gordon's astounded to meet the man, but he gets into business by asking if the story he wrote is true. The priest confirms and even brands the women as uncivilized people who can't produce children. Currently, in Mariquita, the women complain to Cecilia that they want to change mayors because Rosalba isn't an effective one. Moreover, they're tired of enduring their lack of electricity and men, but Cecilia can't provide any solution to their problems. Due to this, Ubaldina decides to leave the village along with the other residents. When they reach the bridge, Rosalba appears and stops them, as she wants to convince them to return home. Ubaldina refuses to live in their village, which infuriates Rosalba. She warns them that going past the mountains doesn't guarantee the paradise that they want, given that there's a war ongoing. For her, a place where they can be safe and abundant can only manifest if they create it themselves. Upon hearing this, the crowd ponders her words and decides to return home. One day, Rosalba, alongside the villagers, notices that the clock has stopped working, which makes the mayor wish that it wasn't a sign. That night, Cecilia proposes to Rosalba that she seeks Cleotilde's help in leading their people because she believes the woman is experienced in such matters. Rosalba finds it absurd, but before she can provide her reason, Cleotilde appears after Cecilia invites her to come over. During their meeting, Rosalba believes that the clock has stopped because of the lack of men. Rosalba finds it reasonable, especially since the male concept of time is about productivity and counting achievements. Now, Rosalba wants to create a female concept of time, which Cleotilde finds interesting. Later on, Cleotilde suggests that they can use the concept of menstruation to have a female concept of time. Rosalba likes her idea, so she proposes they have a menstruation calendar with 28 suns. Then, every 28 suns, a woman's required to have a goal or something she wants to improve. Cleotilde adds that a woman can think of a flaw she can eliminate, which inspires Rosalba to share hers. The woman wishes that she was stronger, but Cleotilde believes that she's already the strongest person in their town. As for Cleotilde, she wishes that she could smile more, and Rosalba encourages her to do so because she finds her smile beautiful. Due to her response, an undeniable attraction brews between them, but Cleotilde abruptly stands up. She voices that she has to leave, but Rosalba encourages her to stay as they have to finish their proposal. For the whole summer, the women, under Rosalba's supervision, start to cultivate their crops, particularly lemons. Aside from this, they assume the task of cleaning the trash as opposed to their initial belief that it's a man's job. On the other hand, in Gordon's location, the journalist urges Priest Raphael to take him to the village, but he refuses. Without a choice, Gordon tries to bribe him with money and food, but the priest takes offense to this. Still determined, Gordon begs him to make him a map, and the priest accepts in exchange for money. The next day in the village, Rosalba reprimands Cleotilde for walking in her undergarments, but the woman's unbothered. She believes that they shouldn't hide their body and there's nothing to be afraid of because there are only women in their town. As an outcome, the residents women start to wear fewer clothes, even Rosalba, who captivates Cleotilde. Due to the tension between them, Rosalba dreams of a scenario where she's making love with Cleotilde. Realizing that she likes her, Rosalba confesses to Cecilia that she has feelings for Cleotilde, so her assistant provides advice for her. To make her feelings known, Cecilia encourages Rosalba to write a poem for Cleotilde, but she stresses that she shouldn't tell anyone about it. Meanwhile, in the orchard, Magnolia seeks Cleotilde's opinion about women loving her own kind. For her, love can never be wrong, which gives Magnolia the courage to admit that she's been in a relationship with Cecilia, and Cleotilde expresses her support for them. The following morning, Cecilia intrudes into Cleotilde's room and delivers Rosalba's love letter to her. Upon reading it, she can't stop herself from feeling giddy, especially since Rosalba reciprocates her affections. Not long after, Magnolia barges inside Rosalba's house and delivers a letter from Cleotilde. Rosalba pretends that she doesn't have time to read it and orders Magnolia to finish writing her goals. Once she leaves, Rosalba reads the letter and becomes ecstatic to discover that Cleotilde loves her. By the evening, as the villagers prepare for their gathering, Cecilia inquires Rosalba about the possibility of her promotion. She convinces her by sharing that she used to be a nurse, and Rosalba is optimistic that her promotion's possible. To encourage her, Rosalba gives Cecilia the honor of starting their gathering by powering the lights. During their celebration, Rosalba declares to the crowd that she's in love with Cleotilde. Delighted, Cleotilde also confirms her love for Rosalba, and this motivates Magnolia to reveal that she's in a relationship with Cecilia, something she's been wanting to announce for a long time. Though she's surprised, Cecilia also professes her love for her. Surprisingly, Lucrecia confesses that she and La Gringa are also in a relationship. After their gathering, the couples spend their nights making love. The next morning, Julio smells a familiar scent in the air, making Magnolia curious. Immediately, Julio writes on the paper that he smells a man's presence in their area. True to his hunch, Gordon's currently in the church, and the women are surprised to find him. Since he's dirty, Rosalba orders him to remove his clothes, explaining that she'll have them washed. Curious, Ubaldina wonders who sent him, and Gordon reveals that he's just a journalist wanting to cover the story of their village. At nightfall, the women ogle Gordon as it's been a while since they've encountered a man. Cleotilde, who's threatened by his presence, urges them not to talk to him, believing he'll ruin their peace. Moments later in the church, Cecilia asks Gordon if he has encountered her son, Angel. Even if Gordon has yet to meet him, he swears that he'll find him for her, much to her gratitude. The next day, Rosalba informs Gordon that they won't speak to him about their story, but the man stops her in her tracks. He tries to persuade her by saying that he can make her part of history, as she can inspire other women to develop a men-free town. After Rosalba's conversation with Gordon, Cleotilde confronts her about considering the journalist's proposal. In her opinion, the article will attract tourists who will observe them like caged animals. Furthermore, she can't stop herself from being jealous because she hypothesizes that maybe Rosalba still likes men. The mayor becomes quiet, but her silence is enough to confirm Cleotilde's suspicions, so she walks out. Following this, Gordon's about to leave, but Rosalba pleads with him to abstain from writing an article about their village. At first, Gordon refuses because it may cause him to get fired. Still, Rosalba is determined to preserve her town's peace, so she begs him to do it for them. A little while later, Angel, Cecilia's son, reunites with Elias and Jacinto, Virgelina's lover. Elias urges Angel to pretend he's dead so that they can be free from the war. Upon complying, Angel voices that he thought Elias had perished back in their village, but the man clarifies that he faked his death to escape. However, the revolutionaries discover that he's still alive after he sneezes, resulting in his conscription. Right at that moment, Gordon appears, and the journalist begins to take photos of the war's casualties. Suddenly, Elias sneezes, which causes Gordon to stumble out of surprise. Angel threatens him with a gun, but he begs him to guide them back to Mariquita. Gordon remembers that he has a promise to Cecilia, so he agrees to help them return home using the map that Priest Raphael has created. By morning, the three survivors arrive in their village, and Rosalba's surprised to discover that Elias is still alive. On the other hand, Cecilia's happy to reunite with her son. Now, Elias declares that he wants to reclaim his position as mayor, but Rosalba refuses because she's currently serving in the said position. Ubaldina interrupts their conversation as she's relieved that Elias is still alive. During their meeting with the three survivors, Rosalba threatens that they won't admit them unless they adapt to their customs, particularly their belief that everyone is equal. Contrary to this, Jacinto thinks that women are inferior. Elias interjects and expresses his desire to claim his possessions, even Rosalba. However, Cleotilde makes her presence known, which gives Elias the idea that she's Rosalba's new lover. Elias believes she's just confused, but Rosalba begs to differ. She deems him as the one who's confused, especially since he's mistaken her for Ubaldina when they made love. Despite his unfaithfulness, Elias pleads with her to reconcile their relationship, but Rosalba remains silent. Unable to contain his anger anymore, Jacinto reprimands Elias for asking for permission from a woman. He emphasizes that Mariquita belongs to them, and he proceeds to aim his gun at Rosalba. Unfazed, Cleotilde threatens him with a bigger gun, but Jacinto finds her absurd. Immediately, Angel sides with a group of women, making Jacinto feel betrayed. Like Angel, Elias sides with them, for he's indebted and respects Rosalba. Out of anger, Jacinto expresses his disgust toward Rosalba and Cleotilde's relationship before he decides to walk out. Meanwhile, in America, Gordon's boss confronts him for not writing the article, but he lies to her that the village is just a myth. The woman sees through his deceit, and she concludes that the residents of Mariquita must have enticed him with their bodies. In the end, Gordon knows that his conscience convinced him to protect the village's peace. Speaking of Mariquita, Cleotilde is still against the men's accommodation, but Rosalba refuses to banish them. For this reason, Cleotilde volunteers to leave the village, as her fear that Rosalba might get taken away clouds her judgment. Later in the church, Rosalba announces to the residents that she'll welcome the men back in the village, yet she requests them to recognize that they're equal in their transformed society, so she wishes to live with them in harmony. Right after her speech, Rosalba follows Cleotilde into the river and begs her to stay. Cleotilde asks her if she loves men or women, but Rosalba simply professes that she's the one she loves. Touched by her response, the woman runs up to her, and the couple reconcile through a kiss. A few months later, Virgelina is expecting a child with Angel, whereas Ubaldina is now married to Elias. La Gringa and Lucrecia have adopted 4 children from a nearby village, and Cecilia learns how to lead their people. Now, Mariquita continuously flourishes as both men and women work together.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.